Welcome to Mysteries of Superstition Mountain. I'm Larry Hedrick, where we bring the past into the present for our future viewers. Today we have another great story by Hank Sheffer.
You know, folks, back in 1917, Arizona was only 5 years old, and it was going through the same throes that other states go through. When they become a state, they're trying to get rid of the old days, they're trying to update what they're doing, but they're going through these throes of adolescence. They don't know what to do, they don't know how to. Anyway, that's what Arizona was doing. And one of the problems that they had, that they were trying to get rid of, was getting this idea of the wild and woolly West, to make that go away. And part of that was they wanted to get rid of capital punishment of hanging people. And the people wanted it. They thought that was a good idea. In fact, the governor at the time, George Hunt, he called it the last relic of barbarism that we could go through. And he was all for getting rid of this hanging capital punishment. Well, it passed. 1917, that hanging idea was banned completely. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you want to look at it, come late spring of 1917, an incident took place that was going to turn all of this around all over again. Now, this incident was first brought to my attention by an article that I read that was written by Tom Collenborn. He's a longtime friend and historian, photographer. There were a lot of things. If he didn't know anything about it, you didn't need to know about it. It was as simple as that. Now, he was talking in this article about, he was having a sit down with Brownie Holmes, and they were sitting talking. And for those of you that don't remember who Brownie Holmes was, we've talked about him before, but he was an old-time pioneer, Arizona born and raised. His father was Richard Dick Holmes and was one of the fellows who was with the Dutchman when he died. Anyway, that's where the Brownie Holmes part comes in. But the death of the Dutchman, now that's another whole story that we've only done ad nauseum in several other of our videos. Now, the story that Brownie related was that he'd witnessed a hanging at 4 a.m. on a Sunday morning back on May 6th of 1917. The hanging took place on the old Superior Road near Buchanan Wells, which is known today as Desert Wells. It's a recreational area, and it's 4 miles north of the Dan Kleiman Ranch in Pinal County. Now, to give you a little bit of information, because some of this is really confusing because of the names of the streets, I had 4 articles, 4 different sources that I used, and they all had different things to say. So we had to work at narrowing them down. And my old friend Larry Hedrick, he came up with some maps for me, and they really helped. They made a lot of sense, and we'll be showing those to you. Now, a little bit about our fellow who got hung was Starr Daley. Starr is a good name because he was the star of this show. He was also known as Van Ashmore. He was 26 years old. He was kind of a vagrant sort of a guy. And he was a very unnice person, as we will see. And he was lynched by a very large contingency of folks, vigilantes, if you will. The story goes like this. On May 3rd, 1917, James Roy Gibson and his wife Florence were heading back toward Tucson. They'd been in Globe to visit family, and they were headed home. That's what they were doing. And according to the reports, they were traveling along the Apache Trail, or the Roosevelt Road. It was also known as that at times back then, and were roughly 23 miles east of Mesa. they turned down a road off of the Roosevelt Road, and they wound up on the old Superior Road. Now, it's important to know when you look at this map that we have that they didn't use the highway because the highway wasn't finished until 1922 or 23, depending on which one of those expert reports you want to read. Anyway, they pulled off for the night on the old Superior Road and made camp. They were a pretty good distance still from Tucson. Well, after James and Florence set up camp, Florence went about the business of fixing supper. And she was busy doing that when this bedraggled kind of fella came riding in on a very lathered up horse. And he was pretty much a mess. And the Gibsons offered him water, he and the horse both, water and supper if they wanted. And for their hospitality, Starr Daley shot and killed Mr. Gibson. Now, there are different versions of that, too, as we've learned in so many of our other videos. If you're going by old reports and old newspaper articles, everybody gets it right, but nobody has it right. So you have different versions no matter what happens. One of the reports says that Daley stole a horse, and along with that, he got a rifle. And it was a rifle that he shot Mr. Gibson with. Shot him 3 or 4 times in the back. Another version says they shot him 5 or 6 times in the back. We don't know which one's which. Either way, Daley made Mr. Gibson about as dead as you can get. He was gone. He was dead. The other version says that he had stolen a pistol from a prospector somewhere along the way. And that's about as much information as we got there. And the way that version went was that Daley shot the man in the back 6 times. He emptied the gun in the guy's back. So this is a really pleasant fellow to have at a party, let me tell you. Well, Daley then told Mrs. Gibson, Florence, who had been busy fixing supper, to take off all of her clothes or he'd kill her too. Well, she obliged and she did that. And our hero, Starr Daley, managed to rape the woman all night. That was on the 3rd of May. Well, come Friday morning, May 4th, Daley decided that they had to make a move. They were going to get out of camp. So he made Florence fix him breakfast. So she was busy doing that, and then he told her that what they were going to do was load the car, and they were going to head off toward Mesa. Well, she said she'd do that, but they were going to take her husband with them because she wanted to take him to a funeral home. Well, apparently, Daley figured that was okay, so he loaded the dead guy in the back of the car, and Florence and Starr Daley took off north on a Superior Road, and they're headed for Mesa. Well, off they went. Well, as luck would have it, the car ran out of gas. So they were stuck. Now, they're stuck out there someplace between the Kleinman Ranch and Apache Junction. So he told Florence, you stay in the car with your husband. I don't know where her husband was going to go, but anyway, stay there with him in the car. And he was going to walk off toward Mesa to see if he could find gas. So off he went. Well, of course, as soon as he was out of sight, Florence got out of the car and she started waving and trying to flag down anybody she could so that she could pass on the news of what had happened. Well, she did. She managed to flag a guy down, and the only word that we have about the person she flagged down was a fellow by the name of Phelps. And Phelps immediately went to the sheriff's office and explained exactly what had happened. Well, in the meantime, the sheriff has now left. He's left the Maricopa jail, and he's headed down the Superior Road. And who's he run into walking up the road? Starr Daley. and he arrests him immediately, right on the spot. Well, Starr didn't resist. There wasn't too much he could do about it. He had an empty gun, whatever it was, and he's trying to get the Mesa looking for gas. So he was arrested, and he was booked into the Maricopa jail with the open charges of murder and rape. It was pretty cut and dried there. Well, Friday evening, it's still May 4th now, Daley decided, he willingly talked about what was going on. He almost bragged about what he did, how he had shot Mr. Gibson, and that he had raped a woman all night, and apparently he was pretty proud of that. He also repeated the same story in front of a board of inquiry, which was a board of 6 people. And he was found guilty of all charges. It's important to remember now, this guy has actually been found guilty of murder and rape. He was then remanded to the Maricopa County Sheriff William Henry Wilkie, who put Daley back in his cell. Well, come Saturday morning, now we're at May 5th, a crowd began to gather up around the jail. Now, apparently they already know that the man is guilty. I'm sure that word got out very quickly. But the crowd is starting to grow. They want this guy. They want to hang him. They say that this crowd gathered to a point of being a couple of hundred people. Some accounts say nearly 100. Other accounts say more than a couple hundred. Well, as time wore on, the crowd became pretty restless, and Sheriff Wilkie is getting a little on the antsy side because it's just him and this idiot in jail. So he decided that he's going to take Daley down to the Florence jail. He's going to take him down there, get him out of this area, because these people were really getting rowdy. They're wanting to hang him pretty bad. So he loaded Daley in the car and set off for Florence, which was some 40 miles away. Now on our map, you'll see there's a yellow line that comes into the blue line that goes to Florence. That yellow line actually went directly to Mesa. And it's my firm belief, and I can't tell you the name of the road because I don't know, but I believe that's the road that the sheriff took. It would have been the quickest road rather than going to Apache Junction to get down into Florence, and that's the way he went. Well, they got down as far as the Gila River, down there where the bridge was put in. The mob gave chase after the sheriff as soon as he left, and unfortunately for Sheriff Wilkie, he got trapped. He trapped him and Daley down near the bridge just before they made it to Florence. My guess would be it was the bridge over the Gila, near what had been at one time the town of Adamsville. Now, just for your own information, Adamsville was one of the first 2 towns that were established in Pinal County. The town had stores, it had homes, it had a post office, which is important, and it also had a flour mill and water tanks. Now, in 1876, the post office itself was discontinued. In 1900, the town was washed away by the Gila River. Now, it's kind of funny when you see the Gila River now under that bridge. There's nothing there but desert. And it's hard to imagine. This is a pretty long bridge, the amount of water it would take to wash away a town. But that's what happened. And the people who survived the Adamsville flood moved to Florence. It was as simple as that. Florence was established in 1866. Was that 34 years earlier. It was about 2 a.m. early on Sunday morning at gunpoint when the mob finally relieved Sheriff Wilkie of his charge. They then hauled Daley back to the scene of the crime. That was back up on the Superior Road, where a necktie party was scheduled for the man. When the entourage reached the destination, Starr Daley did indeed swing into oblivion. They threw a rope up over a cross tie on a telephone pole, and there he hung. They hung him there and then. Now, one of the party, it said, had a car there. Well, they must have had cars because they've been chasing Daley. And they said what had happened was they put Daley on top of the car with a rope around his neck, and they drove the car away and thus hung the man. Another story, according to Brownie Holmes, was that he drove one of West Hill's stagecoaches. West Hill was a major stagecoach company at that time, which you'll see in the picture, that he drove a stagecoach down there, and they put Daley on top of the stagecoach and then drove the stagecoach out from underneath the man and hung him that way. We don't know which is which. According to Tom, he said that he couldn't imagine Brownie Holmes doing that. He couldn't imagine him going down there and being involved in something that violent. I have no opinion one way or the other, so I'm not going to go there. Whatever the case, by 6 a.m., Starr Daley paid dearly for his misadventures. He was hung by the head till dead. The body was left unceremoniously on the utility pole. He was just hanging there, and everybody left. And they left him hanging there. That's what they did. Now, who was going to see them on that road, I don't know. When you see the map, when you look at the map, you'll see it's out in the middle of nowhere. But that's what happened. A coroner's jury got together in Florence. They held an inquest, and they determined that Daley's death was a justifiable homicide at the hands of unknown parties. This was officially the last lynching recorded in the annals of Arizona history. And on top of all that, the incident, in great measure, caused the people to call for the repeal of the previously banished capital punishment law. That law was banished before 1918. So they got rid of it and they got it back, and it took one guy hanging from a telephone pole to get that done. In closing, I have to say, there's very little mystery left to solve where this story is concerned, other than the fact that people have said that Superstition Mountain makes people do crazy things. Gold makes people do crazy things. But we don't see anything of that with Starr Daley. So what is it that causes a man to go completely off the tracks and commit crimes such as what Starr Daley did? The only thing Starr Daley got out of this whole sordid affair was a stretched neck. And we got one more mystery of the Superstition Mountains. Thank you for watching this episode of Mysteries of the Superstition Mountains.